eventually, Zacory basically, the only thing Zacory could do besides basically was basically, I believe, maybe input a bank account, which is the same thing as pretty much just writing in a dollar amount and saying that you owned that much or you were worth that much money, which is, I don't know. Anyway, like I say, you'll have to ask Bill Gates, basically get him, put a lie detector test to him. You'll probably find out, like I said, at some point in time, he was hit up for money or something like that. And he said, I'm pretty sure his exact words were, what money? There is no money. Um, it's just all ones and zeros. He edited the spreadsheet that the banks were using or something like that. He had to weigh in or something like that. Anyway, he basically was a fake person. He basically just added in some zeros and pretty much was withdrawing or writing checks pretty much. He really didn't own Microsoft more than he basically was paying a bunch of people to do computer whatever. Anyway, there's this big 1980s or 1960s, 70s, 80s computer thing where basically a bunch of people were pretty much, they were doing all the online and computer editing stuff, and pretty much they were just writing in whatever dollar amount that they wanted to be worth and basically spending fake money. It really wasn't money. It was just adding to the inflation by huge amounts. And Bill Gates was basically the guy that could make anyone rich just by editing the spreadsheet. He just had access, they started a bank or something like that, and it was an online bank, so it was just like all fake money, and it was just basically, I forget exactly how they were doing it. Anyway, they had some way of doing it, and basically they were, it was all fake. Anyway, eventually Bill Gates was hit up for the money by somebody or something like that. I don't exactly know what it was because, like I say, a lot of people, like drug dealers, they really have a lot of money already, so they don't really need money. I mean, anyway, though, I mean, in the real world, like fake money is one thing, but really having something is another thing. And I'm pretty sure Zacory, the only thing he could do was basically add in zeros or whatever. Anyway, though, there's all these big scams going on. Clinton and Bill Gates, and basically, anyway, pretty much, a bunch of fake check kiting or whatever or something else like that. I don't really care. Scams and basically, just a bunch of fake stuff. But when push came to shove, there's basically online, and then there's the real world food, which is basically your people eventually start starving because their money is no good or whatever else like that. Or you don't really have money, your bank goes bankrupt or something like that. Anyway, I don't really know, and I don't care. Like, you're going to have to ask Zacory or Bill Gates, basically, and his father, what the hell is going on. And I think like he was actually trying to have his father assassinated or something like that so he could get the insurance money or something like that. I don't really know. Like, he made his father rich or something. I don't really know exactly how they were doing it. But basically, there's a bunch of scams running around. And pretty much, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. But pretty much, they're just paying people to do stuff for them. And basically, it was all fake. And like I said, eventually, he was hiring or paying a bunch of mercenaries to do stuff for him. And pretty much, it was all just a lie. It was all just a computer lie. Basically they had access, and later on they had access to people's personal bank accounts through their windows, because most people do their spreadsheets using their computer, and they were able to siphon off $1 or $2 or $5 from basically their bank accounts without anybody really noticing, or steal it somehow electronically. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but basically when push came to shove, they didn't really have any money. And they had actually stolen all their money. And it was just like people hadn't really noticed that their money was being stolen or something like that. Or whatever. I don't really care. Like he just found himself in a position, like I say, he really wasn't all that rich. He was involved with a lot of really bad stuff, and including like irradiating countries and stuff like that. And basically was very much this person that pretty much had just come up with these shells, which are very dangerous, and all kinds of other stuff. And he didn't really come up with it. He just copied it from an old schematic or something like that the Germans had done. Like I said, it was my shell. It was my LS shell, and very dangerous in what I use for creating stars and stuff in space. Basically an open fusion reaction in space. And with the right method, you can actually create a star with it. And they were kicking around inside a museum somewhere. Anyway, some people that had more access to the world and were able to run around the world and check out all the old files and check out all the old places than me basically ran around and basically ended up shooting a bunch of people and trying to gain access to my deep underground bases and mines and stuff like that. And basically, really realistically, they were just small groups doing a bunch of stuff, and I don't really care. Like I've said before, a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people using computers, to gain access to to girls' cell phones, to overhear and listen to their conversations, as well as look at their bank records, as well as and then they could go up to the girls and be like, "Hey, yeah, I want to go to Paris too. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Paris," and the girl could be like, "Hey, I've always been wanting to go to Paris. Oh, we have so much in common." And stuff like that. And basically, that's what was going on with Bill Gates and Zacory and pretty much a bunch of nerds, a bunch of idiots, pretty much, and they were actually paying for people to be killed. Like I say, it's kind of hard. They kind of blend together what Nixon was doing, what Zacory is doing. It kind of all blends together as basically a bunch of pretty much people just doing whatever they want because there was really no one in command, and pretty much they were a problem for the legitimate people out there, which were more concerned about feeding people and doing stuff than anything else. And it was basically just a big abuse of the financial system. And like I say, gold and money really doesn't really have any real value per se, other than it's more intellectual value. So just adding in 500 zeros behind your name really doesn't really do anything other than basically make a bunch of banks go bankrupt or basically just increase inflation. And so realistically, and that's pretty much why Windows was pretty much a flop or whatever else like that, because it was just a way to spy on companies and spy on other people's financial records and spy on what they were doing. And that's why places like Singapore and also why Hong Kong doesn't use the same internet as everyone else, because basically it's just a bunch of people pretty much just trying to access a bunch of girls' information, stuff like that. So that's why they don't use the cell phones from the United States or anywhere else. That's why they have their own, because they don't regard our cell phone, because our phones are basically open source, pretty much Zacory and a bunch of other people sitting in their underwear staring at us all night long like, yeah, I'm going to fuck that girl next week. Oh. And then they walk up to the girl and be like, "Oh yeah, you always wanted to wear, how about we give you a job?" And then they ended up sleeping with them and stuff like that. And pretty much it's just a bunch of, it was a bunch of lies. And that's why Hong Kong, or not Hong Kong, but I mean, why North Korea actually doesn't use the same cell phones. They actually made their own. Just like I said, don't use anybody else's stuff, because you never know where it's been or where it's come from. If you build something else that someone else invents, then it could just as well be a bomb or a way that they could be listening into your system. So that's really why they're not connected to the internet, because they took apart the program and looked at the program, and it's like, yeah, they are spying on us. It's like, yeah, you should really build your own system, and then that way only you will be spying on it, because otherwise you're just opening up your public to whatever else, everyone else, basically the rest of the sewer system. It's like connecting your water system to someone's sewer system. Yeah, not really a good idea. I mean, you find a pipe in the ground and you think, oh, there's water coming out of it. It's like, yeah, that was actually someone else's sewer system, and you've been drinking it. Like, yeah, just because you find something or someone else has something doesn't mean you should use it, which is my belief and my way of doing things. We always do things our way. If we don't build it, we don't use it. So anyway, and that's why Korea actually was doing that, because otherwise, they could be listening into to anything and stealing your information or stealing everything. So that's why I fully, endorsed North Korea, and they should definitely, like every country should really have their own systems, basically for doing everything, because otherwise, you've just allowed, anyone to basically be like, oh yeah, let's see what the leader of Korea is doing. Click. Oh yeah, he's sitting in his underwear. Yeah, that's great. Or something else like that. And that's why we use closed source and basically protected systems for all our government and everything else, because otherwise you're just opening yourself up to Zacory and Bill Gates, which isn't really Bill Gates. So anyway, it gets all complicated and annoying, but basically, yeah, I don't really care. I'm this for a star. So, and there's a reason why I did everything my way. So anyway, because, otherwise you have people like Zacory just kind of like, yeah, I'm worth $10 million. It's like, no, you're not. You're actually broke ass Zacory who lived inside his parents' house until he was like whatever years old, and then whatever. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, I don't really even care.